GoldenEye 007. Where do I even begin? First and foremost, obviously, this game is legendary. Legendary. Not only is it legendary, but I also call it the GOAT times 3. In my honest opinion, it is the greatest Nintendo 64 game of all time. It is the greatest James Bond game of all time. It is the greatest movie tie-in game of all time. And I will live and die on those hills, but that is precisely how I feel. And there'll be some people that agree with me, some that don't, and that's fine. We're all individuals. But this game was so revolutionary. You had to be there to understand how much this game not only has meant to the first-person shooter genre, but the gaming industry as a whole, and how it moved the needle. The paradigm shifted with GoldenEye 64. And if there was no GoldenEye 64, there would be no Perfect Dark. There wouldn't have been any follow-up James Bond games, particularly the ones where you had GoldenEye on the Wii. Then you had GoldenEye Reloaded, and even worse than those, if you go back to the PS2 OG Xbox days, you had the GoldenEye Rogue Agent by EA, I believe, which was a mediocre game at best. It was clear that with that game, they were banking on selling the name of GoldenEye on its own, opposed to actually making a quality title. And that's very evident if you've actually played that game on PS2 or Xbox. But be that as it may, GoldenEye 64. I also go on record to say that it also was a precursor for multiplayer first-person shooters, because even the multiplayer was epic. And again, if you were there, if you were in that time frame of when it first launched, the game itself, even though it was 2 years after the fact of the movie that it's based on, was significantly more successful and better than the actual movie. And that's saying a lot, because GoldenEye, the movie, is actually a good film. As a matter of fact, it's the best James Bond film that Pierce Brosnan shot of the 4 movies that he made. It is certainly the best one of the 4 that he made. So that is saying something. But continuing on forward though, GoldenEye put multiplayer on the map before multiplayer was even a thing. And I guarantee you somebody knows exactly what I'm talking about. You know, those long nights with you and your friends staying over 1-2 o'clock in the morning, having sleepovers, just playing this over and over and over again. Just absolutely intoxicating, to say the least. You know, and so there's so many things that this game is responsible for when it comes to the gaming industry as a whole. And I've already given several examples. So obviously this game is legendary status. And I do believe that it most certainly gets its flowers. So that's something that I will find myself saying a lot, is wanting to give this game flowers, give that game flowers. But no, most people know how legendary this game really is. If you're at minimum a 90s kid, and it's possible that that you were even playing it in the early 2000s, but certainly the 90s, when it was just doing gangbusters. And another impressive feat about GoldenEye 64 is you can count on one hand how many people actually made this title. That's what makes it even that much more impressive. The pause menu is legendary in its own right. The pause menu theme. And you'd have to basically be living under a rock not to have heard this iconic theme. If some reason that doesn't ring a bell, just YouTube it. GoldenEye pause menu, and it'll shoot right to the top of the page, and you can just click on one of them and you'll get a reminder if you don't know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, so yeah, like this game is just phenomenal. It's legendary. Like I said, it's not only a legendary title, but it's a GOAT times 3. As I said, it's, in my estimation, it's the greatest Nintendo 64 game of all time, and that is saying a lot because there's some classics on Nintendo 64. It's also the greatest James Bond game of all time, and it's the greatest movie tie-in game of all time. And again, I will live and die on those hills. If somebody prefers to say different, then please, by all means, go ahead and hit me up on the actual comments and let me know what you think is the greatest James Bond game of all time. Because there are some really good ones that came after GoldenEye. There's some really good ones, and there's a couple of stinkers in there too, if I'm being honest with you. But yeah, so love to hear y'all's feedback on this legendary game. Yeah, again, GoldenEye 64 will forever live rent-free in my head. It's one of those mini games that I'm so very, very fond of. And I can just talk about this all day, but I think I've done enough on this particular video. And I'm sure there'll be some other topics that I'll cover regarding this game and others. So go ahead, leave a like, leave a comment, all that good stuff. And I'll see y'all on the next one.